The shouting came first. Then came the silence that made every shopper turn their heads. Near the jewelry counter, a trembling young girl sat in her wheelchair, tears streaking down her pale cheeks as the store manager's voice boomed across the room. "You can't just roll in here and take whatever you like," he barked, holding up a small silver bracelet like it was evidence in a courtroom. The girl's lips quivered, her hands shook uncontrollably, and all she could whisper was, "I didn't steal it." I swear around her, people had already taken out their phones. Some recording, some whispering. In that moment, judgment weighed heavier than truth. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for what's right, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support keeps stories of hope and humanity alive. Among the onlookers was a man named Ethan Ward, a single father in his mid-30s with lines of fatigue under his eyes and a warmth in his gaze that only a parent whose known struggle could carry. He had come to the mall with his 10-year-old daughter, Maya, to buy her a small birthday gift. They had been saving for months. Ethan knew what it meant to count every dollar to choose between bills and small joys. Maybe that's why when he saw the trembling girl in the wheelchair being humiliated in front of everyone, something inside him snapped. He saw not a suspect, but a child, scared, broken, and alone. The store manager, a tall man with a badge, reading Mr. Lewis, kept accusing her, saying the bracelet was found in her lap. The girl, who couldn't move her legs, tried to explain that she had accidentally brushed it off the counter while trying to reach for her wallet, but her voice drowned under the sound of public scorn. People had already decided she was guilty. And when Ethan saw the manager's finger jab toward her face, he couldn't stay silent anymore. He stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "That's enough," he said. The crowd quieted. Mr. Lewis turned sharply. "And who exactly are you?" He spat. Ethan took a deep breath and said, "Someone who still remembers what compassion looks like." The room froze. He knelt beside the girl, noticing her trembling hands clutching the sides of her wheelchair. "It's okay," he whispered. "You don't have to be afraid." The girl looked at him, startled by the gentleness in his tone, something she hadn't heard in a long time. Ethan turned back to the manager. "If you think she stole something, call the police," he said. "But stop treating her like she's less than human." The tension was thick enough to choke on. The manager read with anger, muttered something about shoplifters and sympathy, but he did call security. Two guards approached, one with hesitation. Ethan stood his ground. "Check the footage," he demanded. "If you're going to accuse her, do it with facts." The girl sat silently, tears dripping onto her lap. The crowd began to murmur. Some started to realize they might have been wrong. After several minutes, one of the guards returned from the back office with a tablet. He whispered to Mr. Lewis, who went pale. The footage showed exactly what the girl had said. The bracelet had slid off the counter when her elbow brushed it, falling into her lap. She never took it. A wave of shame rippled through the crowd. Mr. Lewis tried to apologize, but the damage was done. The girl's tears didn't stop, not because of the false accusation, but because someone, a complete stranger, had stood up for her when no one else did. Ethan crouched again and asked softly, "Are you okay?" She nodded faintly, her voice breaking as she said, "Thank you. Nobody ever defends me." Ethan smiled gently and said, "Then it's about time someone did." He and Maya offered to take her outside for some air. They sat on a bench near the fountain. The girl introduced herself as Clara Jennings, 17, paralyzed from the waist down since a car accident 2 years earlier. Her mother had passed away last winter, and she'd been living in a small shelter while finishing her studies. Ethan listened quietly, his heart tightening with every word. He saw so much of his own struggle in her, the loneliness, the quiet battles no one else could see. What Ethan didn't know was that across the mall, a man in an expensive tailored suit had been searching frantically. His name was Martin Jennings, Clara's harangued father, a self-made millionaire who had lost touch with his daughter after her mother's death. He'd been trying to find her for months, guilt eating away at him. Today, fate had brought him here. When he saw the commotion earlier, he had been too far to reach in time. But now, as he spotted Clara outside sitting beside a man and his daughter, he froze. Martin approached cautiously. When Clara turned her head and saw him, her eyes widened in disbelief. He knelt beside her, tears forming instantly. Clara, it's me, he whispered. Ethan stepped back, sensing something deep unfolding. The girl's lips trembled as she whispered, "Dad." And in that moment, the air seemed to hold its breath. Martin wrapped his arms around her, crying openly. He thanked Ethan over and over for protecting his daughter, for being the kind of man he wished he had been all those years. Ethan shook his head. "Anyone would have done it," he said quietly. But Martin looked at him and replied, "No, not everyone does what's right when no one's watching." As the crowd dispersed and the noise faded, Clara smiled faintly through her tears. "You didn't just defend me," she said softly. "You reminded my father who I was." Ethan looked at her, his own eyes glistening. "Then maybe today wasn't about luck," he said. "Maybe it was meant to happen." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, where every story reminds us that compassion still exists in this world. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you saw that girl being accused? As the sun dipped beyond the glass roof of the mall, Ethan walked away with his daughter, holding her hand tightly. Behind him, a father and daughter reunited, and a girl who once felt invisible finally smiled again. And somewhere in that quiet moment, between apology and forgiveness, between strangers and family, kindness had once again rewritten fate.